Just going to raise up.
We don't just swing longer, we don't just turn round more flatter. We actually need to feel like we are extending up a little bit here. I am going to show you how you can add 20 or 30 yards to your drives using a very simple but extremely powerful and consistent feel when you want a little bit extra out of those drives. We all want to hit it a bit further, don't we? You know, but sometimes when we try it, it really just screws us up. So you have to get the feel right just to be able to tap onto the gas a little bit more, to get a bit more time, to get the contact, to get the speed, and to get that extra oomph that we want without extra force or effort that causes you to miss the shots you want. Let's find out how. Pretty much every day, I either get an email, a phone call, a comment on YouTube, or on the lesson tee, people wanting to hit this thing a bit further. However, if you're just trying to kind of do your regular swing, let's say, and hit it harder or faster, you're really screwing yourself up. And you might think, well, you know, it's just not going where I want. Or in fact, when I try harder, it even goes less further than if I did nothing or like very easy swinging. It doesn't quite make sense, does it? Well, let me explain the fault a little bit. But let me ask you this. When you try and get a bit more out of your drives, what are you thinking? What are you trying to do right now to get 10, 20 more yards on a par 5 or downwind or whatever it might be? Is there a swing thought that you have right now? Let me know below. Does it work for you? Doesn't it work for you? So what happens is, right, we've got a big drive and we're trying to just swing a little bit faster and harder. All that really happens is we just screw up our sequence. We don't have the lag that we want, we don't have the time that we want, and we haven't wound up correctly. Perhaps you do one of, maybe just one of these or a couple of these when you're trying to get a few more yards with the driver, okay? Because if it looks a bit more like you're trying to turn way behind it to get more, that's going to kill you, right? You should know by now. If you haven't, check out some of the videos where we talk about winding up rather than turning, okay? And that's what we're addressing a little bit today, but there's an extra feel to tap onto that gas pedal, right? The other thing that is going to happen is tension, okay? If we have too much tension, nothing quick can really happen if we're trying to force it like this. It actually slows us down. It might feel like you're kind of giving it a little bit more, but it actually slows us down. The radars, you know, the TrackMan, GC Quad, Swing Caddy, whatever it might be, they'll show you that when you more often than not try harder and squeeze and tense up, you're going to actually lose yards. So please stop that, right? That's number one. And the way you do that is this. But let's be supple with the arms here, okay? Suppleness with the wrist to allow that wrist hinge to happen naturally, to help that lag, you know, to trail behind the club head, to trail behind the body, to be able to extend and snap through where we want it, where it matters the most at the ball. And we can do that more often with less effort, with more supple wrists, okay? So this club wants to feel heavy in our hands. That's paramount with every single shot, but especially when we're trying to get a bit more beef out of the driver. If we're trying to make a backswing and we kind of stall and stop a little bit here, we're a little bit narrow. The club sort of gets cast down and we just haven't got the natural sort of slinging sequence that we're after. So how can we get it? Is this just for driver? Well, maybe not. If you're finding that you're struggling with a bit of distances overall, you might not just really be kind of completing your backswing or getting as much out of it as you need to. Even with a short swing, we still want to feel that little bit of extension. So try it with some irons as well, okay? And remember, we still want the transit, we don't want to be static and still. We're not necessarily pausing because everything still has to move that way you know, we actually make the transition before our backswing starts, and that's how we get a bit of extra lag. But that feeling of extension and raising that chest up is going to give you an extra bit of oomph with every club. This is the main key. You might realize that the swing, you know, we are sort of rotating a little bit here. We're winding up. We don't need an extra long backswing. We talk about that a lot, and our Short Swing Maximizer series is, you know, thousands of people are enjoying it already, and you can check that out below. But even with a short swing, if we're just sort of stopping here and kind of turning behind, there's no extra oomph that we can gather here. With the longer club in the bag, we need to give it a bit more. And it doesn't necessarily mean swinging longer, okay? It's not about trying to push those hands further up. That's what messes us up. If we're just trying to swing longer with the hands, there's no extra wind up, there's no coil, and all that happens is we get out of sync and the shot screws up anyway, right? So the feel that we need to have is like so, right? If you don't know already, the swing sort of turns and tilts, right? The backswing and the through swing. Actually, with the backswing, this distance from the hips to the shoulder shortens, okay? It actually does this, if you're doing it correctly. Now we sort of wind up and kind of complete our swing, right? And there we have a perfect sort of backswing. But how do we get there? If you have a tendency to either just sort of tilt down too much, or if you're just sort of moving your hands, you're not getting that extra, what we need to call and think of as extension, okay? It's backswing extension. What I mean by the extension is, as we get to about here, let's say a full swing, we don't just swing longer, we don't just turn round more flatter, we actually need to feel like we are extending up a little bit here, okay? Why does that work? Because it keeps us perfectly in sync. It winds up the swing just that extra little bit more. So we can make our backswing to about here, and the only feeling I want you to have from here is to feel like I'm extending my spine a little bit here. My backswing is being extended that way. Now notice, I'm not just lifting my head up, I'm not just lifting my arms up, I'm actually extending my chest and my spine. And you might be able to see that from different angles. So instead of just being to here, okay, I'm now going to feel like I'm extending my spine and lifting the right shoulder up, okay? So it feels like I'm actually getting a bit taller. I'm not actually getting taller because my head, I mean, I really don't mind if it lifts up just a hair, but we don't want to be reverse tilting this way, okay? It's not this where we're leaning back, and we're not here lifting up. I'm not lifting up out of the shot. I'm just to my normal sort of backswing, and I'm feeling like I'm expanding my chest, stretching out my spine and the obliques a little bit here. And that gives me, just that feeling alone will give you the 20, 30 extra yards. It's simple. It might take a little bit of practice, but I promise you, when you get it right, you will find that you just have a bit more time to hit that golf shot with the driver where it's here and you can just extend up and then make your swing all the way down. It's subtle, but it's also what it's going to feel like to you. And you don't necessarily have to do it every single drive. You can, but I would recommend it just because it is going to cause a little bit of out of timing sometimes, because you're sort of winding up just that extra little bit more, which means you've got a bit further to travel and you have to move a little bit faster. That's going to be hard to time every single time, right? Let's be honest about that. But it's very useful to have that in the bag. Now there's one extra tip I'm going to give you is when you get to the top of the swing, instead of rushing the hands and getting stuck and narrow here, I want you to feel this one move. When you get to the top, I want you to feel like the top of the club, the butt of the club is actually moving that way. What's that going to do? That's going to help our lag so we can snap through with a little bit ease, but it's going to give us that time, because often we get too narrow when we're trying to hit the ball harder. That screws us up. So we still want width, but we don't want width with the club head like that, you see? So by pushing the club this way, maintaining the distance from the arms so they're relatively straight but supple rather, then swing through. That slight delayed feel can work wonders for you, and I want you to try it. So we certainly don't want to feel like we're leaning back like this, and we certainly don't want to feel like we are raising up. We just want to feel like there's our normal swing, and now I'm extending the spine, raising the chest up just a little bit to give me the extra room and width and coil that I'm after. I'm not trying to rotate all the way around. I'm not trying to swing faster. It's a very subtle move. Practice it at home without hitting any shots at first, and just see how it feels, okay?